Hello, you lovely people, and welcome back to Sabbatical Stories. I'm your host, Bex Thomas, and I'm coming to you today from Manly in Sydney. And I'd therefore like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast is recorded, the Gairmagao people. I pay my respect to their elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples listening today. I set up this podcast to inspire courage and normalise taking a break from your career, and I would love it if you could help too by subscribing, liking and rating the show. It really would mean a lot. Today I'm joined by Lyndall Farley, an ex-management consultant whose transformational sabbatical helped her redirect her life and career. Originally from Australia, she now lives in the Netherlands and she's taken a whopping 11 breaks. We chat about the difference between the breaks and how best to really approach your break from a mindset perspective, why she spent the first part of sabbatical number 8 running away, and why it resulted in a return of confidence and her falling back in love with herself, how she had an epiphany about how she needed to start her own business, how failure is all part of an essential part of the entrepreneurial journey, and how she ended up becoming a sabbatical coach and starting up the community BreakSpace. All this and much, much more. Deep down, you've tried, dig deep, search wide, enjoy your climb, it's all for you. Hi Lyndall, lovely to see you and thank you so much for joining us on Sabbatical Stories.
Absolute pleasure, happy to be here.
Exactly as it's your sabbatical story, could you please give us a bit of a background to you, who Lyndall is, and why you're here today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am Lyndall. I am an Australian. I live in Amsterdam, world traveller. But I think probably the most interesting thing is that I am a sabbatical coach. And so I help people to make the most of their sabbaticals, to plan them, navigate them, and make it a life-changing break. And in the course of doing that work, I've actually taken 11 sabbaticals myself. I know that that sounds like a ridiculous number, but the truth of it is that the first couple of sabbaticals, I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't even have the word sabbatical to describe the fact that I needed to step away, recharge, reflect, get some perspective, and then come back for what was next. When we're talking about sort of my sabbatical, I tend to anchor on sabbatical number 8 because that was really my most sort of transformative sabbatical. All of them have definitely changed my life, but this one really changed everything in my life.
So 11 sabbaticals. Wow. In how many years?
Well, this is since I was 19. Yeah, I mean, it started with what some people would call a gap year. I've basically taken all the different types of breaks you can imagine, and I've called them different things, but ultimately they're all extended breaks of work to pursue other interests. Yeah, I think that now that I work for myself, I have my own business, we really aim to take a sabbatical every year, or certainly every second year. And so that's how the number can creep up pretty quickly when you're taking them as regularly as we do. that number gets high pretty quick.
So you mentioned sabbatical 8 being the most transformative. What made it the most transformative?
I guess I need to kind of start from the beginning and set the stage. Being that this is Sabbatical Stories, let me tell you the story. I was working in my management consulting career. I'd already moved from Australia to Amsterdam. I'd been doing that for 10, 15 years in the consulting space. It's a pretty intense kind of work environment, lots of travel, and I was really burnt out. I'd come to the end of a relationship that had really also left me a bit jaded. And I just got to that point where I was like, is this all there is? And I'd been working so hard at, climbing the ladder, and I'd got to the point where I was kind of looking up at the next rung and looking at all the women around who were already on that rung and looking at their lives. And I was just like, God, I don't want that. I do not want that. Oh my God, what am I going to do? And so I was really at a pretty low point in life. Luckily, the company I was working for had the ability to take a 6-month sabbatical and then have the safety of having the return back. And so I was like, okay, great. It wasn't like it was my first time, but it was like, okay, great. Here's yet another way that I'm going to manage to get myself onto one of these breaks. I had always had the long-term goal of traveling around South America, but actually also traveling to all 7 continents, so including Antarctica. I was like, right, this is my chance. So I packed up my life and set off on this big adventure, solo travel adventure. I don't think that I was really that great at, setting all the stuff that we do with clients, right? Setting the intention and the themes. But there were really definitely themes coming through. And that was like, I just needed to find myself again. I'd completely lost my mojo, lost my sense of me. I needed to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. And I wanted to tick off a couple of amazing bucket list items along the way and have a great time. So that was kind of the intention. And it's almost like there were 2 halves of the sabbatical. The first half was just spent running, basically running away from my life. And that was characterized by fast travel. So lots of great adventures, but very fast travel. And that fast travel didn't really afford me the chance to really kind of decompress everything that had happened, but also to really kind of recharge either. But it was kind of, I was so pent up that I needed the fast travel to sort of slowly unwind, if that makes sense. So as I was doing the fast travel, I was actually slowing the pace down. Then I remember I was sitting in the middle of the Atacama Desert in Chile. I got this opportunity to get like the last berth for this expedition to Antarctica. And I was like, shouldn't I? I'm literally sitting in the middle of the desert considering going to Antarctica. And I was like, okay, yeah, have to go. I sort of basically jumped on a plane and just went straight down to the bottom of Argentina, which is where the ship was going from. I mean, I didn't realize how amazing Antarctica was going to be. I mean, the place itself is like this amazing white wilderness, and the wildlife around in the areas around that, South Georgia, Falkland Islands, etc., is incredible. It was actually because I was forced to spend 3 weeks on a boat with no internet, no connection to the world, no telephone. Everything was provided for me, meals, I had this wonderful community of people that were all around me, like-minded people. And all I had to do was get up, go down, eat, and then get off the boat and go in some amazing exploration somewhere, right? And so through that process, I think that was actually when that full disconnection is really when I found my sense of me again, because people were not measuring me by anything they knew of me, or they were all just meeting me for who I was, where I was at. And yeah, I think I fell back in love with me as well, as I was meeting all of these wonderful people and making these amazing friendships. It was actually then on the last day, I was sitting on an ice rock. It wasn't a rock because it was ice, but it was hard. Sitting on an ice rock. It was the last moment where I was in Antarctica. I had to step back on the boat to go back. And I was just like, right, okay, it's time. I have to start my own business. And I didn't know what that was going to be. And that's filled me with so much fear. But I finally had enough confidence to dream that it might be possible and to step into the fear around it. And so that was sort of really in the middle of the sabbatical. And then the second half of the sabbatical, I continued to travel, but I spent like a month just sitting in Buenos Aires in cafes and just like, thinking about what this might be like, and sort of slowly, gently allowing it to kind of unfold through conversations with people and research and things. The slow travel bit was then this duality of like continuing to move and explore and having great experiences, but at the same time having moments of stillness, a much more slow experience where I could dive into the deeper parts of myself and really kind of figure out what I wanted and what this business needed to look like and what it could possibly maybe be.
Wow, amazing. So you're in Antarctica, you're on these expeditions. Are you doing anything to kind of, I don't know, work out how to get to that point of you going, oh, I've got to start my own business, I want to start my own business? or was it simply just almost the space and the nothingness that made you have an aha moment?
I was actively not thinking about it, if that makes
wow.
like I was really still in the mode of running away from it, not wanting to answer the questions. But what happened was a return of confidence, and then that was the kind of universal download of you're ready.
And it speaks to all of those things, doesn't it, of like the silent retreats and the meditation and the when you have the most creative ideas when you're in the shower because you're not thinking about anything, or that space gave you that gift almost of then sitting on the rock and going, shit, this is what I need to do.
Yeah, and it was like, this is what it was very clearly, okay, this is what I need to do. And I often talk about how I think it had been there, but I was almost repressing that as an idea because I just didn't have enough confidence to even consider that I could make that a success, or that I could work out what on earth I could do to, start my own business. But what was very clear was that I was done working for people. How it felt to me, and this is very much the management consulting environment, I think, but I was done being owned by people. I was done having people own my time, or, and a portion of my life that they were allowed to control. And so I was like, well, the only way, and this is very, very pre-COVID, right? So we have to remember COVID has actually shifted this a lot with much more flexible working and working from home and all this hybrid kind of stuff. It did shift it. Yeah, that kind of flexibility didn't exist, and certainly not in my profession.
So you're almost all in and being owned like 5 days a week, 70, 80 hours a week, or you do you.
Yeah, or you work for yourself. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, right, that's it. I've got to figure out how to work for myself.
And so how did you do that? How did you then go, okay, this is what the business is going to look like?
Oh, man. Well, that's a whole other journey of how did I get to Beyond a Break, which is my business, right? So, but that in itself is a meandering story of exploration. I don't want anybody to think that I sat in Antarctica, I got this download from the universe that I was going to start Beyond a Break. Then the next day I started Beyond a Break in exactly as it is right now. And then, it was a huge roaring success. That is the absolute opposite of what occurred. What happened next was I sat in Buenos Aires in Argentina. Actually, I got a coach, so helpful. And then I started thinking, okay, well, what can I do? Basically, like because and consulting, freelance consulting was the way I ended up starting because, that was the thing I could do, right? Well, sorry, there's a step here. I knew that as I was setting up myself, my business, I was going to need to actually go back to my employer. So I actually painfully went back to my job for a year while I prepared this business and I figured out what it was. So during that time, I started setting up the business. Importantly, I trained as a coach as well, because I was pretty sure that it was going to be something to do with coaching involved. Consulting and coaching was my likely pathway, but I didn't know what I was going to coach on or consult on, right? I set up the business. I went back to, so I was working for KPMG. I went back to KPMG, went to 4 days a week, which after my sabbatical and then going 4 days a week, it was basically career suicide. But at that point, I didn't care because I was like, everybody knew I was like a part-timer because I was kind of halfway out the door, and
Foot's out
the door. And so I didn't care that meant that I wasn't going to get a promotion or that I wasn't being considered as an all-in. Like, basically, are you on the partner track or are you not? And I had just taken myself well off the partner track, but I was like fully okay with that because I'd already pre-sabbatical, I'd looked at all the partners because the next step for me was to, really be going for the partner track. And I looked at all the partners. I was just like, nah, don't want that life. So I was perfectly fine with going the career suicide, which in management consulting speak is just, you're not going to progress any further. But that was a really great cushioning that gave me, the salary and everything. I actually sometimes wonder if my bosses my old bosses would ever listen to these podcasts, but this is what I told myself. I basically said in that year, if I get anything more than meets expectations for performance, then I've wasted energy in my job, because I should be putting that energy into my future and what I'm creating. So I just need to, and as a high performance person who always had gone for exceeds, like always overshot everything, that was a huge shift too. Like just trying to do the minimum to get by, to do the job. Like I didn't want to be a bad employee, right? I just didn't want to be the super performer that I'd always been.
And your priorities had shifted, and priority number one was you.
Yeah, which I think everybody should have that.
Absolutely, but there's so many that don't. We know.
I didn't exactly. And so that was a huge mindset shift, and I had to constantly pull myself back from overachieving, right? So I don't know what, I think I probably did get a meets expectations. So
well done.
It was meeting expectations. Yes, I didn't overperform. I retrained as a coach. And so this is where the experimentation and the iteration of everything came about. I was trained as a coach, and I'd been working in like business strategy, organizational change management stuff for ages. And so I thought, okay, well, I've got a strong business background. I'll be a business coach. And then I was like, so I was going to be a small business coach, right? And then I started just through friends of friends, started coaching small business owners, realized I knew nothing about running a small business, and all of my corporate strategy and all of the business strategy that I've been doing was at like massive multi-million-dollar global company level, right? And that was not at all transferable to small business. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, Lyndall, the small business coach, I don't think that's going to work. And so I very quickly gave that one away. I left KPMG because I was able to set up my freelance consulting business. And I started doing organizational change management consulting, like in just taking freelance projects. And that was great because it gave me these kind of project kind of lumps of work. But then in between them, I could go and work out, okay, well, what am I going to do next? And another one of my failed experiments, I say failed in the most positive way, because I really believe that, experimenting and failing is absolutely the pathway to figuring out what you want, was I took myself on another sabbatical. I think this must have been sabbatical number 9 in Bali. I had the idea that maybe it wasn't consulting or coaching. Maybe I was going to be a UX designer. And so I started doing a UX design course. Like UX is user experience design. And so started doing that, and then noticed I was really struggling to get myself to do the courses, and I really wasn't enjoying the work, and like the whole process just seemed like tedious, and I was just like, I hate this. And yet high performer, overachiever, perfectionist, was beating myself up about, not doing this course, and like, why am I not doing this course? Blah, blah, blah. But it was funny because along the same lines, I had talking to people about my lifestyle changes and how I was living my life with all of these breaks. I remember I was talking a lot to people about sabbaticals, how to design them, how to think about them, what I'd learned along the way. I remember sitting in Bali actually with a very good friend of mine, and she was like, Lyndall, you've trained to become a coach. I had also been doing life coaching on the side as well. You also keep on being asked from people about how you do your sabbaticals and how to make the most of it, and why don't you just like combine those two things, be a sabbatical coach? And I was like, is that a thing? And then she was like, you could make it a thing. And then Beyond a Break was born. Yeah. But that was a 2-year circuitous route to find the intersection between the skill set that I had and the passion and the purpose. I'm really sort of describing the ikigai right now, finding the intersection of the thing that I loved, right? The thing that I felt like the world really needed, the thing that I felt I could get paid for, and the thing that I was good at. Yeah, that's when it all sort of fell into place. And then I launched Beyond a Break on sabbatical number 10.
And of course, right, where else better to launch it than on a sabbatical?
Yeah.
Amazing. And do you know what? I think the two messages that I would love the audience to take away from that story is, one, the myth of overnight success. You know, this myth of you go on sabbatical and you have this aha moment and then you come back and
Figure it all out.
and it's like, I don't know. And that even once you've had the aha moment, it's not an overnight success.
Yeah.
And, you know, you went back for a year. Well done. Mine took 5, right? Like, from going, this is what I want to do, this is the life we want to lead, working out the sort of financial goal and everything like that, and working back. It was a 5-year plan. So going back into corporate, knowing that it was the means to the end, but still going back, right?
Yeah.
So I think the overnight success myth busting bit I love, and also the iterations. The fact that, you know, that whole try, not quite right, try again, not quite right. So all of those iterations of kind of, I had a guy on series 1, Steve Duke, and he talked about this whole prototyping different things and either different ways of living or different businesses or whatever. And it's that prototyping of, okay, right, is this going to work? Oh, no, you know, fail quickly, move on. I love it. And I think they're two really important messages.
Yeah. And, you know, you just mentioned fail fast. I actually say fail first, fail fast, because you have to be prepared to fail first before you find the solution, right? It's very unlikely that you're going to the overnight success myth, right? You're not going to immediately find the thing that works, right? So you've got to fail first, but you've got to then fail fast. And that means letting go of it.
On to Beyond a Break and life now.
Yeah.
If you look back over your sabbaticals or career breaks or whatever we want to call them,
all the breaks,
all the things, all the breaks, what would you have wanted to know back before taking your first that you know now?
I think I would have liked to have realized a little bit sooner that I had a very good pattern of sometimes using a break to run away, but then not actually doing anything to solve the underlying issue on the break and then just coming back into the same situation. I think that was more characterized by the breaks in my 20s. So I mean, okay, in your 20s, perhaps you don't have as much self-awareness around that. A lot of my early breaks were characterized very much more by escapism rather than sort of personal development or asking the big questions. All of them I had managed to kind of come back and break up out of a relationship or, you know, start a new job or whatever it might have been. And really, in the earlier breaks, I think the purpose of them as well was very much about exploring the world and doing amazing things as much as it was about addressing kind of underlying issues. But I don't think that I kind of spent a lot of those breaks just running away. So I think I would have encouraged my 20-year-old self to do a little bit more introspection than perhaps a little bit less drinking, a little bit more introspection.
Yeah, I hear you. But would we be the people we are today? It's questionable, right?
Yeah. It's there are so many different ways of arranging these breaks, right? Sabbatical, career break. I think I've done just about every incarnation of how you can do this. You know, left a job, being hired for a new job and leaving a job and then, you know, negotiating a break in between, making use of policies in companies that I was working for, but really like expanding and extending those policies to the absolute maximum of what the company would allow. I've taken like volunteer breaks where I was like seconded to work for Aboriginal communities in the far north of Australia. So that was sort of, I was sort of working, but it was very much a break from the norm, you know. So, and then, you know, traditional travel breaks, entrepreneurial kind of sit in one place and develop ideas kind of break. And I mean, I've literally traveled to 60 countries all around the world, 7 continents. I mean, all the travel.
And did you get your 7 continents in that break number 8?
Yeah. But then I looked back over that year as well, the year that was surrounding the sabbatical and including the sabbatical, and all 7 continents were in that one year.
Wow. Yeah. In 365 days.
Yeah. The other thing I would do is make sure that you plan your break for your life stage, right? So in your 20s, do the backpacking, do the trips that and the type of travel or the type of breaks that you want to take, to do the kinds of things that you want to do in your 20s. Don't save them up until your 40s, because you're not going to want to have the experience of your 20s in your 40s. Right? So take regular breaks and design them in a way that is appropriate for your life stage and desires and wants at the time. Then, I mean, we already talked. I mean, I've got so many tips. You're going to have to stop me. I'll give you one more. Really think about being purposeful about, what is it that you want from this break? Is this break about travel, or is it about sitting in one place and figuring some stuff out? Or is it a combination, right? So actually, what's interesting to me is increasingly my clients and I think the world are using these breaks, and they're not travel focused. I think 15, 20 years ago, people were only really you only really heard about people taking breaks to travel. Nowadays, travel is perhaps a component of it, but most sabbaticals are not about just pure travel. They're about spending time with family or pursuing other passions, writing a book. So design the break that's right for you, be intentional about what you want to get out of it, and design the experience around that purpose and intention.
Now, a top fact that we haven't covered is that Katrina, who kicked off our series 1 of Sabbatical Stories, you co-edited the book. What was your involvement? But you had an involvement in the book.
Yes. So Katrina wrote a book, Taking Career Breaks for Dummies, by Wiley Publishing. It's a fantastic book. And she asked me, the publisher asked me to be the technical editor for it. So we worked together on this book, and it's absolutely her book. She keeps on saying it's our book. I'm like, you wrote it, dude. It's your...
Whoever's book it is, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's such a good resource for everybody.
Yeah, it really is great. So I was the technical editor, but she really did all the hard yards. It's been absolutely fantastic as a resource for people. We continually get tagged in posts where they're saying, I've read this book. It's changed my life. I've had the most amazing break. I wouldn't be on this break if it weren't for this book and Katrina. And so it's a really fantastic resource. And I think what was interesting in the creation of that book, she obviously wrote it and she was talking about her methods and all that kind of her advice, but it was so similar to the way I approach things. And then there were things that were very different. And so we were able to kind of push and pull on the concepts of how these things transpire for people. Yeah, make a really solid book as a result. So if anybody wants a thorough guide as to how to plan a break, but also how to navigate your way through it, that book is absolutely up there.
Which has also now materialized into a new business with the two of you. So tell our audience about that.
Yes. So the most exciting thing that we've done this year is, so Katrina and I decided to launch a membership community, which is all about supporting career breakers and sabbatical takers to plan a break, but really to navigate that break towards making it completely life-changing. This wonderful community is just growing so quickly. It's called BreakSpace. And what's inside of BreakSpace is, first of all, so far I think there's 54 amazing career breakers and sabbatical takers. And they're really forming this beautiful community of like wisdom and support for each other. And obviously, Katrina and I are up there as the experts, and they have direct access to us. It's the cross-pollination of ideas and support and beautiful wisdom that comes from the group and the community that really it makes my heart sing. I love it. So there's obviously that aspect of all of bringing people together to really share the journey. But then we've also got a full break planning course in there. And there's 4 live calls that we do a month. There's a community call where we really come together and, share that wisdom, share the stories, share the journey. And then we have 2 drop-in coaching sessions. And so that's where people can directly come and get coached by either Katrina or I. And then we have masterclasses as well. So I've just delivered a masterclass on career transitions. and we're building up this beautiful library of masterclasses. And so there's one on financial planning, and there's one on life design, and we're bringing in experts from outside as well to deliver masterclasses on sort of anything sort of tangentially related to breaks, all of the things that people come across, all the advice that they need. Yeah, if anybody wants support on their break, then come and join us in BreakSpace.
And how do people find you and
how do they
come and join you?
Very all you have to do is go to www.gobreakspace.com. So GOBREAKSPACE.com. You can sign up for the wait list, because we only open our doors at specific times. Like every few months, we open our doors for a new cohort of career breakers and sabbatical takers. And the reason we do that is because we're really curating this tight-knit kind of community. And so we sort of bring people in, nurture them, support them, and then get them all sort of working together, and then sort of slowly bring in another group. So it's really thoughtfully created for the experience of our members.
I honestly don't think there is anything more magical than a co-created space as well.
Yeah.
So I'm a great lover of sitting in circle with people and facilitating circles, and that whole co-creation of just the container and the space. It's just magical.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Sounds amazing. So look, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your personal story, and then also for our audience exactly what BreakSpace is and how it can benefit them, and where to find you guys. Is there anything else that you think that our listeners need to know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, come and connect with me on LinkedIn. I share all of my sort of ideas and stuff on LinkedIn. I love it when people connect with me on LinkedIn, particularly if you say, I heard you on Sabbatical Stories. It's such a wonderful way to connect with people. My passion is really about helping people get themselves onto and take a break, but really use it as a life-changing kind of experience. And so I really want to support people to do that. So I love doing that in any way.
Brilliant. Thank you. And all of the links will be in the show notes. Thank you so much, Lyndall. That was absolutely brilliant. It's been lovely speaking to you.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.
And taking matters into your own hands, you won't believe that you're making headway. And plans.
Thanks so much for listening. I really do appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to join us. Thanks so much to Lyndall for sharing her sabbatical story. BreakSpace will be opening the doors to new members again on the 26th of February. Get on the wait list now, because spots are limited, and every single time they open the doors, it sells out super quick. Go to www.gobreakspace.com to join the wait list to get early access when the doors open on the 26th of February. Thanks as always to Auntie B at the Flaxen, my patient and talented producer. And also a special shout out to the incredible talented Joanna Cook, whose soulful blend of smooth vocals we're lucky enough to use throughout the show. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could like and rate the show, and even if you want to make my day, leave a positive comment too. Also, if you think a friend would like this episode, please do buzz it over to them. Your support means so much, and spreading the word helps even more. Do you have a sabbatical story to share? Maybe you know someone whose journey would inspire others. I'd love to know. You can get in touch via Sabbatical Stories Podcast on Instagram, or message me on LinkedIn. I'm Bex Thomas. Until next time, take care of yourself, keep dreaming big, and remember, your sabbatical story is waiting to be written.
Deep down, you try, dig deep, search wide, enjoy.